Stimulate. Stimulate.
Michigan judge ruled that Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson violated state law when she unilaterally issued new rules on signature verification without going through the proper process. Benson had ordered election officials to decide in favor of finding the voter's signature was valid in cases where there were slight similarities in signatures on absentee ballots. But Judge Christopher Murray said...
Have you got the show going out to both the YouTube and Facebook?
Yes.
Thank you, buddy.
For USA Radio News, I'm Tim Berg. The following is an American Matters media production. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of the station or its advertisers, although we think they should. But that's the opinion of American Matters Media.
This is not America. Sha-la-la-la-la. Little piece of you, a little piece in me will die.
This would be a bit much, but this is a very special St. Patrick's Day because it is the last one ever.
The risk of being called a white
St. Patrick's
supremacist.
Day is about being Irish.
Give the okay
and
sign.
being Irish is mostly about not being English, at least until now. Take a look at this. Geneticists who have tested DNA throughout the British Isles claim that both Britain and Ireland have been inhabited for thousands of years by a single people. We're genetically the same. Let me tell you, that really got my Irish up. And since my Irish is now also my English, it also got my English up. And my English tried to put my Irish down.
And welcome back.
And welcome back to Talking Truth to Power. That was Stephen Colbert, and he was talking about today, which is St. Patrick's Day. And this is Talking Truth to Power.
Is it St. Patrick's Day today?
Yes, Talking Truth to Power is also called the Irish American political show. But I'm Brendan Trainor, and you can tell that I am Irish American, and we've got Lee.
I'm not.
Okay.
I think there was a smidgen on my mom's side.
Okay.
Nothing.
But Lee, you've lived in Ireland.
I did, yeah.
Yes.
I was there for 7 months, and even got into the recording studios while I was there, and yeah, I learned more about the country than they did, actually. You know, there's an old adage that says that those that go to Ireland become more like the Irish than the Irish themselves. And I was one of those people.
Okay.
Now, they'll dispute that, of course.
Yes, of course. And I can tell you that my parents, you know, they had an ambivalent relationship with the English.
That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, their parents came over in the Troubles, and they were neither IRA nor Royalists. They were Redmondites. They believed in more home rule, but not independence.
What year would that have been?
Well, they came over about 1923, I understand. But
so right after the partition. Then.
Yeah, but during the Troubles, the IRA once forced it's a family story, forced my grandfather to hide weapons in his home because they lived in Dunkirk, which was right on the Irish-English border, and it was a gun-running town.
I went through there many times.
Yeah. And so...
you know what I would do? I'd go up to the north. This was when I was living there in 86, and the car that I had access to had both regular fuel and also propane control. So I would go up there, and petrol was cheap in the north, you know. So I would go up there once a month, fill up both the gas tank and also the propane tank, and I was good for a month, you know. But I'd have to go through Dunkirk, and there was never any Irish,
Dundalk, you mean?
Dundalk,
yeah.
And there were never any soldiers on the border itself.
Right.
You could just drive right through as if nothing was going on, but it was during the Troubles, you know.
Oh.
And you'd see these automated devices in little towns, you know, where they had concern that there might be a device that was ready to go off, that sort of thing, you know. Very, very awkward, but very intriguing at the same time.
Yes. I know the storied history of the Emerald Isle. And unfortunately, I just posted a video to Talking Truth to Power about how Temple Bar area in Dublin is still shut down, and all the Irish pubs are shut down. So I don't think there's going to be a St. Paddy's Day parade.
Not much of one anyway.
No.
Yeah. They never used to do anything about it anyway. They actually have been emulating our experience for probably a generation, because we're the ones that put green dye in the rivers and all that stuff.
And green beer.
They never did that. It was
No.
historically it was a holy day,
Right.
So
Well,
it's been much more secular. The country's trends,
The country is trending much more secular.
and that's why they kind of come around to our way of thinking now, and they've commercialized it, which
Sure.
is fine. I have no
Yeah,
problem with that.
I have no problem with it. But they have also been demonstrating in the streets in Dublin about the lockdowns, as in many European cities. So, unfortunately, we decided to bring you a little Irish cheer here this morning, despite the lockdowns.
And despite the fact that the English and the Irish share the same DNA,
yeah,
which was what Colbert's remarks were about.
It's very similar. I mean, I haven't had my DNA tested yet, but I should, because they both have Celtic roots. I mean, the Celtics were and then before the Celtics, there were other people there. And then, they were pretty much the same, except the Romans conquered England, did not conquer Ireland. And then the Vikings.
Yeah, they only went as far as London.
Yeah. And the Vikings had both. They built Hadrian's Wall. They went as far as the border with Scotland.
Yeah, but that was to the north.
Right.
I meant west.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
they didn't cross the Irish Sea.
No, they didn't cross the Irish Sea, no. But the Danes did. The Irish, the Vikings, you can...
That southeast corner of the Republic is nothing but Scandinavian.
I know.
Wexford and all that.
Right. The Danes, the Vikings controlled not only Dublin, but most of the seaports for hundreds of years in Ireland. And, if you see a red-headed Irishman, he's most likely Nordic than Celtic.
Yeah.
The Celtic Irish Colleen is raven black hair and blue eyes.
And the dark-haired Irish.
Yeah.
That has its origins in Spanish culture.
Well, that's an urban myth. That actually, like I said, the Celtic people were normally black or haired. That's what they...
Dark-haired.
Yeah, dark-haired.
Yeah.
But even raven-haired is what they... There's a lot of Irish poems about raven-haired lassies and all that stuff. But, so it's a good thing to celebrate your national origin. It's not necessarily a good thing to obscure it, and we're going to have a little discussion.
Lie about it.
Yeah, we're going to have a discussion about that in the last segment of the show.
Are we?
Yes.
Okay.
But
we're going to have another Jews in the News segment?
we are.
Okay.
We will be here.
All right, good.
And Eamon De Valera would appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, he was probably, he was born in New York.
Uh-huh.
So he was probably living in some sort of a Jewish enclave there anyways.
The driving force in truck and auto repair. Everybody knows.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ,
a Lotus broadcast station.
the power of radio since 1967. Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now, back to the show.
Hey, welcome back. It's Talking Truth to Power. I'm your host, Brendan Trainor, and my co-host is Leland Faegre. And let's get back a little bit into the news. We had an admittance or confession by the Washington Post that they misquoted Trump when he called the Georgia election officials regarding the discrepancies in the vote count in Georgia in the 2020 election.
Fulton County,
Fulton County especially, yes. So he asked the Georgia election, according to WAPO, he asked the Georgian election officials, or pressured them, to find the fraud, and if they did, he would make them a national hero. He also asked her to invest. All right.
And this went on all over the media. This was the narrative. And I remember saying at the time, so what? That doesn't even mean anything. He's not saying to find fraud that didn't exist.
Right.
He said find the fraud. We knew there were fraud. It was fraud there.
Right.
So where exactly was the problem with the original understanding of the narrative?
Well,
but it turns out he didn't say it anyway.
He didn't say it anyway.
Yeah.
And it was very similar, they put it in the impeachment brief.
Yes, they did.
And it's very similar to the accusation about his phone call to Zelensky in Ukraine.
In the Ukraine.
But the thing is, the American Conservative has got a follow-up story this morning. It says there's something rotten in the Secretary of State of Georgia's office.
Right.
And
there is.
Yeah. Apparently there was one woman, and the bigger scandal named Fuchs, F-U-C-H-S.
Yeah, F-U-C-H-S, yes.
Right. And
I'm looking at her now. I got a picture.
Oh, gosh. Good thing I don't have to look at her. But the point is that she somehow became a Washington Post sycophant or big fan. Mm-hmm. And she just simply said this. And the bigger scandal is not the misquoting, but that's bad enough. But the fact that all the major mainstream media took her word for it and did not bother to listen to the phone call or do any other investigative
to validate what she was saying.
Right.
Which is what you're supposed to do.
They all simply confirmed it because Orange Man bad.
She just saw a stairwell up to the highest levels of journalistic heights. That's what it was, and she thought she could get away with it because they all do this now. Right. Nothing unique about her.
No.
So.
No.
It really.
I mean, there's so much use of anonymous sources.
But she's fine with lying about it. She knew she was lying about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what's upsetting about the whole episode.
Right. And, these are things that should not be taken so frivolously, so lightly. When you're, talking about taking a president out of office or saying that he is a caricature of what he really is based on no evidence.
Right.
And
that's the problem.
Yeah, he's supposed to be, according to the left, he's this awful, evil, he's the new Hitler, he's a crook, he's, all kinds of things. And
electrophobia, your favorite phobia.
Yeah, electrophobia. And time again, they've been proven wrong, and he's been vindicated.
Yeah.
And yet the narrative doesn't change.
Clean as a houndstooth, and yet all of this stuff doesn't get expunged.
Right.
It's still out there, and that's the damage. That's the damage it does.
Well, I'm surprised the Washington Post even printed their retraction.
I was too. That was my first thought. Why are they retracting this? I guess they're doing it now because they can go soft on Trump while Biden's in office. Is that the...
I don't think they're going soft on Trump, but they're certainly...
Well, they've softened.
Yeah.
They've softened. There's not as much going on Trump.
All right. Well...
It's not a day-by-day, 24-hour, how are we going to get this guy?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, let's face it, it was about a bullet or election fraud.
Right.
That's what they had. Those were the choices they had. They either put a bullet in his head or steal the election from him.
Once they couldn't get him out of office with 2 impeachments.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that they have no idea that they are so wrong about everything.
They're the ugliest thing out there. I mean, it's just nothing that is more detestable than these people. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't give these people the time of day if you passed them on the street, would you?
No, I wouldn't. No. But once they have political office, no matter how they get it, then the narrative, the history belongs to the victors. In other words.
And they have 2 channels where they can get away with it now.
Yeah.
MSNBC, and that's where. Not that anybody's watching them in
right, their ratings
numbers,
have dropped precipitously.
And Fox's has dropped also.
Yes, but less than theirs.
You know why? It's because they went with that fair and balanced thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're sick of that. We want fair and balanced. We'll go over to The other ones. The other
Newsmax.
two, Newsmax and what's
One
the other
American.
one? Yeah. We'll
Yeah.
go to those now. That's fair and balanced to us because it balances out that nonsense over there.
Right. Yeah. And I have a bone to pick with some of the things that they say on Fox. Even without the fact that they deserted Trump, and they declared Arizona the winner. They're still doing the forensic audit in Arizona.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
And I understand there's probably about 18 election cases that are still working their way through the court.
There are,
so.
and he something like Trump has won about 11 of them on the merits.
And when they decided to look at them on the merits.
Mm-hmm.
But so WAPO retracted the story, but as Chief Justice Roberts likes to say, it's moot
It's
at
moot.
this point.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Of course, it never mattered to him.
No. No, he's definitely a never-Trumper.
He came out of the Bush orbit, so I'm not sure why we're too surprised about that.
Right,
So,
right, exactly.
Probably Masonic. He's from the old secret society league of judicial nominees. That's probably where it comes from.
Well, everything is slanted that way, and we're gonna again in the final segment we're going to be talking about a major public relations firm, an international public relations firm, and how it's connected to the one world government crowd. And these ties are just not talked about. You cannot talk about certain things in this country.
That's right.
Which is not the way America used to be.
It's not a free press.
No, it isn't.
To the extent that we're entitled to or should have one. And before we leave that subject of Georgia on the elections, this Judge George recently, what was his name? I didn't see his name here. But anyway, he may unseal Fulton County's absentee ballots for fraud investigation and review them. So there
That's a
are,
good thing.
developments there as well.
And how about this?
Does YouTube know this?
Yeah, they gave you a strike recently, right?
Yeah. They pulled down last week's show, ostensibly because we had discussed election fraud.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it was illegal to talk about election fraud. Apparently it is.
Yeah, apparently in these days it is. I mean, if you're going
Does
to...
Schmidt know this?
If you're going to insinuate in any way that Biden was not properly elected, you're going to get banished from the social media sites, or and then that's not all. I mean, you can get shut off these sites for a whole host
just
of
about anything.
Right
now, they will determine the narrative, and if they don't like it, you're out of here.
Right,
because it's mine. And these politicians that, in the earliest of days of the digital era that we grew up in, were responsible for this. They didn't level the playing field for these platforms. And they had privilege, and now they're using that privilege.
Well, you know what? Technology might be able to save us. I mean, they're talking more and more about peer-to-peer networks instead of having all the servers in one place where Amazon or somebody else can grab them.
Right.
If the internet becomes more decentralized, that may be one way that we can work against this. But in the meantime, it's lockdown America and censorship America that we're living in.
Yep, that's what the masks are for now.
Yeah.
Symbolic.
Yeah.
And I see that on Gateway Pundit that a former mechanic has now created an entirely new social media platform after his wife has been banned from Facebook for supporting Donald Trump. So this is the trend, and all I can say is let's get this going.
Yes.
Let's accelerate this.
We need, because America is up against formidable foes, both in the open and hidden, and we try our best to shed, here at Talking Truth to Power, to shed the light on them, but you can't always do it. Most Americans are going to just be happy that they have a shot in the arm and money in the pocket, that Biden is
lucky.
presenting them. Yeah.
And, of course, we're around the world now, so that message does get out there. So.
AmericaMatters.us.
Yep.
So, but, the thing is, on the other hand, many Americans, it's not really talked about, but many Americans are refusing to take the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
And Americans, of course, have been arguing against the lockdown, and some of the states are finally rescinding the lockdown.
Isn't that ironic and more to the point we were mentioning earlier in this segment, that they're now on Trump for not being an advocate for getting the vaccine, even though he was the one
that got the vaccine.
managed the warp speed process that got us the vaccine.
Right. Well, all the other presidents, they all came out and said, get vaccinated, and Trump didn't say anything. So obviously he doesn't want Americans to get vaccinated.
Well, I mean, how often do you have to slap yourself on the back?
At Northern Nevada Family Dental, we are proud to announce a wide range of advanced dental services by way of the...
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Are you shy and don't want to talk on the air? Text us your questions or comments to 775-237-2266. Now, back to the show.
Welcome back. It's Talking Truth to Power. I'm your host, Brendan Trainor. I'm here with Leah Faegre, and we were talking a bit about different things, but now we'd like to talk a little bit about the Andrew Cuomo scandal. And I want to bring to your attention how is in the 1990s, Andrew Cuomo was being praised as, his relationship to the Kennedys was being called Cuomo-lot.
Yeah.
And so in his that brief span of time, he's gone from Cuomo-lot to Cuomo-sexual.
They have done that, and then they've invoked or brought back his former role. You know, remember when he was HUD at HUD?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's a big shot in the Democrat machine.
Yes, he was. And when he married Kerry Kennedy, who was one of Robert Kennedy's daughters, Robert Kennedy had, I think, 11 children. And that was supposed to be a marriage of Democratic royalists.
Yeah. Well, I guess it was. I mean.
Yeah, and they did have 3 children, but things began to go downhill, mainly because Andrew Cuomo didn't fit in with the Kennedys.
Yeah.
They said he was too tightly wound. He didn't know how to have fun, and everything was about his career. For example, I don't know if you ever seen my cousin skits. My cousin from Boston, who goes to a wedding party and starts making all these outrageous toasts.
I didn't see it.
No, well, anyway, Cuomo refused to allow toasts at his wedding.
Oh.
Yeah, he was too uptight to do that.
Yeah.
He didn't want to be associated with anything that the Irish American Kennedys were involved in, except to use their name to advance his own career. Is the thinking?
Right. Now, is it fair to say that there is an Italian etiquette associated? You know, just sort of a Cosa Nostra etiquette associated with this Cuomo family now? I mean, that's the way they behave.
Yeah.
Intimidation and, you know, it's not
well,
lost on me, I guess.
It could be an Italian thing or it could be a New York thing. Forget about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Or maybe combination of the two.
Yeah. And then when Kerry Kennedy's brother Michael was killed in a motorcycle accident, the Kennedys wanted a private, Irish wake, which would also include some alcohol and toasts and things like that.
Is that right?
Yeah. But then Andrew and Chris showed up and put the kibosh on everything. They frowned on alcohol consumption, and worse, Andrew and Chris both went outside and talked to the press just to make sure to let America know that they were there with the Kennedys in their time of sorrow.
So not only are they party poopers,
Yeah.
They want to steal the show as well.
Well, they wanted to steal the show as well.
So I guess really there's no love lost in the Democrat machine for these people.
No, apparently not.
Yeah, they've been putting up with them for a long time.
And then later on, Kerry Kennedy said she sometimes had to hide in the bathroom because of Andrew's abuse. And eventually she had an affair with a trust fund polo player. But there are accusations that Andrew strayed as well, and they were soon divorced. So, after all this glory and being the possible heir to Trump and being named as a presidential timber during
he
the
definitely
COVID.
was.
Yeah,
earlier last year. Mm-hmm.
Right. And he's, because of his own uptightness, or I almost feel sorry for the guy because he also had that 14-year-long affair with a socialite named Lee, I think it's Sandra Lee, and that ended without marriage. And now he is probably pretty lonely, but he's going about it in all the wrong ways.
Right.
I mean, that this last accusation that he called up an aide and told her to come by because he was having a problem with his cell phone. He needed her help to adjust his cell phone.
That was the ruse?
Yeah, and then and then when she came there, that's when he slipped his hand up and,
That's how he got her in there. I see.
Yeah,
I didn't know how he got her in there. I just knew about the result.
And, all of the aides, all of the women in his presence, all the women he hired had to be good looking, and they had to wear high heels and all this,
for him,
to please him. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So, and there's also the idea that some pundits have been saying that Kamala Harris might be behind this, that she's
been reticent to say anything.
Right. She hasn't said anything publicly, no, but they're thinking that she would like to eliminate any opposition, any potential opposition to her candidacy.
Because, God, she is so weak, isn't she?
I know.
And I watched her yesterday respond. I forget what the issue was. It might have been this, actually, or it might have been something else. And I realized what is so offensive about her, among other things. Or maybe first and foremost.
Yeah.
Her laughter.
Oh, it is. It's horrible.
And,
it's
this
like
is something,
Hillary Clinton's cackle.
And this is something that normally, for a normal person, it's endearing.
Uh-huh.
You like somebody's laughter, and you tell them, "Oh, I love your laugh," that kind of thing. You can't say that about her.
No.
What is that? I'd like to understand that dynamic.
Well, maybe instead of the eyes, maybe laughter is in this
arrogance.
Well, the window to the soul, and there's not much there. It's kind of just flapping in the wind. I don't know, but
I'd like to understand it. So if the listener understands it and wants to give us a call, we'd love to know what that is. But that is just really the problem for her. She really should stop laughing.
Right.
And she'd be much more presentable.
Right. Well, stop disassembling.
Well, there's other things.
Yeah.
But I mean, visibly, the empirical, the superficial. It's the laughter that's so offensive.
Yeah, well, I said from the very beginning that she was nothing more than Hillary 2.0. Mm-hmm. Maybe she doesn't have a foreign, money pit that Hillary created for herself with her foundation, but she still is very, very much in the Clintonite, Mm-hmm. And, her whole thing is to get the Hollywood scene, which is, frankly, we're going to have a little bit more about this in the final segment. But the Hollywood scene is, frankly, Jewish, and she's and black. Smollett, yep, and his sister. She runs in that circle in Hollywood, and it's it doesn't bode well for the country, I'm afraid.
And Smollett, what's going on with Smollett?
We haven't heard from Justin lately. I don't know if he's acting or not.
In any of these very uncomfortable situations.
He might be doing summer theater in the Catskills or something.
There's so many of these crimes that just get buried, huh?
Uh-huh.
It's amazing. No such thing as justice anymore.
It's very hard to find any real justice. I mean, that's the world that we're living in now, where everything on our side, everything that we see is illusion. And we have to look elsewhere for any kind of reality. And they're calling elsewhere, they're calling that an illusion. So,
and what we're suggesting here on Talking Truth to Power is you just stay out of the judicial system altogether.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, who knows what you're going to find out.
Yeah, I know. They're supposed to be independent, but you know what? The judges, especially the federal judges, they're supposed to be independent, but their checks come from Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's hard to imagine that they are as independent as they claim, and we keep seeing it as they refuse to take on the state in most matters. That's why we were so hopeful, and we still are, for people like Neil Gorsuch, who has shown that he is not afraid to take on the state when it's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just have to see if that continues.
Did you see that Senator Whitehouse has decided he wants to go after Kavanaugh again? Did you see that?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Really?
They said that the FBI botched the investigation or otherwise made it appear as though it was legitimate when it was not, and therefore Kavanaugh skated under those circumstances.
If they can't impeach him, they're going to stack the court. So
yeah, and they have to dig up posthumously that whole story and retell it. Now, is that what they're going to go to do now? And now that Trump is no longer so visible that they can go after him every day?
well, they're ramping it up against Russia again, and that
China tomorrow.
Yeah.
What's his name? Secretary of State is going to meet in Alaska with China officials tomorrow. So far on the surface, it doesn't look as though the administration has vacillated from the Trump policy with regards to China, vocally, But let's see what goes on after tomorrow. What's his name? I can't even think of his name. CFR member.
Blinken?
Yeah.
Yeah, out of the law firm Winken, Blinken,
yeah,
and Nod.
Well, the deal is, this administration is just not very exciting to me. And it's harder to play along, It's harder to follow the story because these people.
The banality of evil.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is like the C team of players at the highest levels.
Right. They,
Backbenchers.
Biden has always been a less than average politician.
In his 50 years? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's got a most unenviable track record, but he's a survivor, I guess.
He is a survivor, that's for sure.
Okay. We have to tell him about you.
Are you a skilled diesel mechanic looking for a great place to work with dynamic pay, health insurance, 401k, and other great benefits? Dynamic Diesel is looking for qualified full-time journeyman diesel mechanics to work Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to...
This overload.
Shannon Lawson here. Join us for the Nevada Radio Roundup, Fridays at 2 p.m. A good news variety show all about the local scene. The Nevada Roundup, Friday at 2.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now, back to the show.
Well, it's time to give the Anti-Defamation League disclaimer because we've got another segment.
Did we call security?
Yeah, Jews in the news.
Okay.
So we know that Israel is America's greatest ally and is the only democracy in the Middle East, and they don't throw gay people off of roofs. And any time that we see Jews behaving badly, we must acknowledge, in every instance, it's always our fault.
Exactly.
So the Jewish people are well known for changing their names and going to great lengths to hide their heritage in order to prosper in Western society. But when public figures go to some length to hide and discourage inquiry into their possible Jewish heritage, it's a version of obscurantism. Obscurantism
What a great word, huh?
Yeah.
That's a great word.
Obscurantism is the practice of deliberately presenting information in an imprecise and abstruse manner designed to forestall further inquiry and understanding. And we know that this is rampant in the mainstream media, which is largely owned or strongly influenced by Judaics. Also because criticism of Jews is taboo in our society, partly because of the same controlled media. Even alternative media suffers from obscurantism. Many in the alternative media are afraid to talk about what we call the Jewish question or the JQ for fear of being canceled. These days, the mere accusation of racism or anti-Semitism can scar a person's reputation and cost enormous amounts of money due to lost opportunities. So recently, the popular alternative health expert Joseph Mercola, who is critical of the standard COVID-19 and vaccination narratives.
That rascal.
Yeah, published on his website February 16th, and then picked up by Children's Health Defense, the NGO run by Robert Kennedy Jr., an article called The Web of Players Trying to Silence the Truth. And Mercola in particular criticized the Publicis Group, a large international PR firm with ties to the World Economic Forum, as at the center of a large network featuring big pharma, big tech, the U.S. government, and global NGOs, non-governmental organizations. And they're working together to further, and they've said this out loud, the Great Reset. So Publicis Group also works with the Paley Center in New York City, which is a well-known U.S. media outfit, and then with NewsGuard.
Paley was the former,
former
head of CBS, and
right.
also a member of the Council on Foreign Relations.
Right. And also with NewsGuard, Microsoft, Google, even WebMD, to restrict access by the public to alternative news regarding vaccines, and like the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine, which is the Pfizer vaccine. So we're going to go and expose some of this obscurantism right now because,
otherwise it will remain.
Yeah, it will remain obscure.
So we don't want that.
We don't want. We believe the public has a right to know. So, the CEO of Publicia is Maurice Levy, and he is Jewish. The vice chair is Elizabeth Badinter, whose father, Marcel Blaustein Blanchett, founder of Publicus, is half Jewish and raised Elizabeth as Jewish. She's married to Robert Badinter, who is Jewish, and Elizabeth herself is a wealthy French writer, largely about feminism. Her son, Simon Badinter, is a U.S. radio talk show host in 20 major markets. Another board member is her niece, Sophie Dulac. Thomas Glosser, CEO of Reuters News Service, and Reuters has been shown to be more and more corrupt and pretty much a cutout of MI6 and the CIA. Yeah. And he's on the board. He's on several boards and is the former head of the Council of Foreign Relations. His bio obscures his Jewishness. Board member Marie-Jose Kravis is married to billionaire and Jewish investment firm owner Henry Kraven. Another board member is Andrei Kudelski with another obscured bio, but a former steering committee member of the Bilderberg Group.
Oh, okay. All right.
Talk about globalist connections.
Yeah.
Susan Levine is married to Eric A. Levine, a wealthy entrepreneur who was council member of the Holocaust Museum. Although their bios are obscured, it's safe to say that they are both likely Jewish. Publicus is partially obsessed with publicly. Their motto is diversity, equality, and inclusion, boasting of the male-female diversity on its board.
Have I heard this before?
Yes. Yet 8 board members, over 60%, are Jewish or married to Jews, and 4 are in the same Jewish family. Chairman and CEO Arthur Sadoun is another whose bio is obscured, but is almost certainly Jewish. His wife, Anne-Sophie Lapith, is an attack dog against Marine Le Pen in France, where she's a journalist who mostly writes about feminist articles.
So that's her job there in France.
Yeah, basically.
You just sit there and work on Le Pen.
Yeah, exactly. NewsGuard, which acts as a gatekeeper in America to discourage visits to low-ranking websites, features CEO Stephen Brill, who is a Queens, New York Jew. Co-founder and co-CEO is Louis Gordon Krovitz, Although his bio was also obscured, various articles have identified him as Jewish and associated with American neocons and a member of the Council on Foreign Relations.
Sure.
The Paley Center is also dominated by Jews and those who are close to Jewish power, including our old friend Henry Kissinger.
Former director of the CFR.
Right. For example, of the 41 Paley Center Los Angeles Board of Governors, at least 10 are Jewish. The Paley Center is also dedicated to diversity,
Sure.
which usually means counting Jews as whites and excluding white Gentiles who are not married to Jews.
So they have a different definition of diversity.
Yeah.
It's like when you look up a word in the dictionary, there's a first definition, and then there's a second definition.
Right.
It's one of those.
And then there are
underneath.
synonyms.
I see. Okay.
And now we haven't even gotten around to exploring the World Economic Forum. That will probably happen on another show. But its satellite organizations are overwhelmingly Jewish in both personnel and outlook. Joseph Mercola and Robert Kennedy Jr. are both courageous for their stand against the Great Reset, but even they are unable or unwilling to identify publicly the ethnic composition of their opponents. Even Marie Le Pen, when commenting on their attacks by Anne Lapie, had to resort to calling it an exclusive caste estranged from most French. Mm-hmm. Exclusive, not inclusive, is the key word there. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Are you comfortable with this infrastructure of repression working out? One can only speculate is what the Great Reset is all about.
I think if we suggest this story to 60 Minutes, they'll rush right on.
Oh,
it.
they'll get on it right away, I'm sure.
Because this is really important stuff.
Well, you know, even Fox News, I mean, even Tucker and Laura Ingraham are the most based.
Yeah.
They can say that somebody is a liberal Democrat, but they can never say that they are a Jewish liberal Democrat or a Zionist liberal Democrat. They cannot identify them because of the obscurantism that our major media is complicit in.
Yep.
You know, so when is America going to start talking about how much power a small ethnic group, which is a tiny fraction of the population, has over our lives and how we see the world?
Well, first of all, they'd have to know that it exists.
Exists, right.
And they don't.
They don't, no.
I mean, they have some nebulous thought about it once in a while, and they're reminded every now and again, but they don't focus on it. It's not, part of their daily nourishment, academic nourishment.
The U.S. Army is now going to examine everybody in its ranks to see if they are right-wing extremists, which is code name for anti-Semites.
And don't take down that fence yet.
Because we all
You never know who's going to be climbing over that damn thing.
And so all of them are white supremacists. Everybody that came into the White House, to the Capitol building, is obviously a white supremacist.
A racist in some fashion.
A racist or fascist.
And you notice that Newsom is using that in his defense against the recall effort in California.
Oh, that's a white supremacist movement too, huh?
So all those almost 2 million people that signed that recall petition, he's just called racist.
Who is he the niece of? Or the nephew of?
Nancy Pelosi.
Nancy Pelosi. Yeah. Okay. Well, she's not Jewish, but she has self-identified as Shabbos Goy, which means being a friend of the Jews. You know.
I think she's part Chinese.
Well,
Because she got real cozy with the Chinese back in, I think it was 08, 09, when her husband, began to sort of flirt with Chinese business.
Right.
And they've got some standing there.
Well, her husband is very big in defense, money, and that's really what it's all about. I mean, there are now rumors that. Now, this is strange because in the Ukraine, the neo-Nazis are actually largely funded by Jewish oligarchs, and you won't think that would mix until you realize that Zionism is largely a fascist movement.
Yeah, and central banking, of course, is the heart and soul of any war.
Right.
So
you have to get that funding.
Yeah.
All right, and we've now fought several wars without really raising taxes.
And the Rothschilds, of course, were infamous for their roles in the central banking wars of Europe. So,
Joseph Kennedy blesses two of the Jews.
Yeah.